Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Runes and Red Tape, the storytelling channel where magic meets paperwork and epic quests have to be approved in triplicate. Oh, and please remember to hit that like and subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything and it really helps the channel out. Right then, this week's story is called Tripping the Light Fantastic. In a house that believed itself to be respectable, there lived a girl called Elin. The house had opinions. It approved of polished surfaces, symmetrical ornamentation, and silence unless that silence could be weaponized. It disapproved of Elin. This disapproval was administered chiefly by her stepmother, Mistress Vala, who possessed a kind of smile that could corrode metal. The stepsisters, Kessa and Bryn, had inherited the smile, though neither had yet mastered the same depth of condescension. Elin, for her part, had inherited a doll. It was small, wooden, and dressed in a sort of careful stitching that suggested an abundance of both love and patience in its creation. Her mother had given it to her on the morning when Ellen's world had become darker. "Hug her and offer her a breadcrumb when you need help," her mother had said in between the bouts of coughing. "It will know what to do." It had been 10 years since her mother had passed, and in all that time Ellen had often reflected on that remarkably vague warranty. She shook her head. Tomorrow was her 16th birthday, and yet this one maternal memory provided more guidance than she had received from the rest of the household. The trouble began, as many troubles do, with a shortage. "It's out," said Mistress Vala, peering into the hearth as if it had personally betrayed her. "No light, no warmth, nothing." Kessa sighed. Bryn agreed with the sigh, though she wasn't entirely sure what it meant. Elin, who had been quietly coaxing the last ember into a small and stubborn glow, joined the chorus of silence. "You," said Mistress Vala, turning with the efficiency of a blade finding its mark, "can go into the forest." Elin looked up. "Me? Into the forest, where the great wizard Badat Yoga hunts his prey? Well, I'm not going to risk one of my own flesh and blood, now am I?" "But," Elin gulped, "he will eat me." "Elin," said Kessa helpfully, "don't worry. He's sure to like you as much as we do." She smiled. "Exactly," said Mistress Vala. She smiled. Not wanting to be left out, Bryn nodded before she, too, smiled. Faced with a wall of scorn, Ellen fetched her coat and left. The setting sun had begun its descent below the horizon. The air chilled as wispy strands of mist flirted with the tree canopy. She checked for her doll in her pocket before she pulled her coat tight around her. In front of her lay a cornfield awaiting harvest, at the end of which was haunted wood, and possibly her last day on planet Earth. "Don't forget to ask for the light," Mistress Vala shouted from an open window. "And when he asks you why, just tell him, 'Because they're so beautiful.'" The window closed to a chorus of laughter. Ellen took a deep breath before striding purposefully toward her fate. The forest began where the field lost interest. The hedgerow whispered warnings. The outer trees leaned inwards, conspiring. Ellen walked, tentative steps but on high alert. The forest floor swallowed her footsteps in silence. The air hinted at menace. Pathways appeared, then decided against it and quietly left. After an hour, Elin was completely and utterly lost. Grateful for the full moon to light her way, she took out the doll and offered it a crumb of bread. The doll's painted eyes seemed to regard her with professional calm. "This is not ideal." The doll, as usual, said nothing, but Elin felt a small, steadying sense that something had taken note. "Right," she said. "I suppose we just carry on then, shall we?" She spotted a tiny gap in the trees on the far left of her vision. She could have sworn it wasn't there a moment before. Maybe the forest had responded, or maybe it was extremely committed to coincidence. With no better option available, Elin set off with a new-found purpose. The clearing arrived abruptly and uninvited, like a gate-crasher at a wedding. In its centre stood a structure that could only be described as, "How the hell is that still standing?" It was technically a yurt. It was also hovering. It rested upon mechanical limbs that clicked and adjusted with the fussy impatience of a creature that disliked standing still. Panels along its sides flickered with symbols that were either runes or error messages. A faint hum permeated the air, the kind that suggested something was being powered that probably shouldn't be. Elin approached. The door snapped open. "Enter, you will," said a voice from within, "or loiter awkwardly." There was a pause. "Oh, come on, make a decision before I age further." Elin stepped inside. The interior of the rounded tent was larger than the outside had any right to suggest. It was cluttered with objects that defied easy categorization. Some glowed white, some whispered poetry. One appeared to be filing paperwork. At the centre stood a small green figure with large pointy ears and the expression of someone who had been interrupted at a particularly inconvenient moment. "You are not what I expected," said Elin. "Disappointed you are," said the figure. He turned, regarding her. "I am Badat Yoga." He said it with the air of someone who expected this to mean something. Elin nodded politely. "Nice to meet you. I am Elin." "Ah, light you seek?" "Yes." Elin held up her hand. She waited for Badat Yoga to nod his acknowledgement. "Is the way you speak normal, or do you put it on for tourists and the like?" Badat Yoga sighed. Okay. Look, one has to keep up appearances, so can we carry on, please?" Elin nodded. Badat Yoga steepled his fingers. "Sent by cruel stepmother you were." Elin shook her head. Badat Yoga gave in. "Fine, you win." He looked to the skies. "Now, where was I?" He looked back at Elin. "You were sent by your cruel stepmother to ask me for an eternal light. She hoped I would eat you instead. Her plan is both transparent and, dare I say it, unimaginative." He paused. "Would you say this is a fair assessment?" "That is accurate," Elin replied. He took a deep breath. It caused a small shift in the surrounding air pressure. "I could, of course, just eat you. I am rather hungry." Elin considered this. "Will you?" "It is tempting, I must admit. But the paperwork." He gestured vaguely at a stack of leather-bound logbooks. There was a pause. "Tell you what," Badat Yoga said brightly, "why don't we play a game? You complete some tasks and I won't eat you." "How about," Elin countered, I complete the tasks and you give me one of those eternal light sticks." She pointed to a cane stand near the entrance, the tops of which glowed white. A large container materialized with a soft, almost apologetic thump. Inside was a shifting mass of popping corn kernels. They glowed faintly, each in a slightly different shade. "Separate the good corn from bad," said Badat Yoga. Elin peered into the container. One of the kernels blinked. "Excuse me," it said in a tone of mild indignation. "On what criteria are we being judged?" Elin closed her eyes briefly. "They are speaking?" "They have been known to complain from time to time," said Badat Yoga dismissively. Another colonel chimed in. "And I'd like it noted that I've always considered myself above average." This caused an outbreak of what could best be described as a period of vocal, interruptive overlap. "Oh, please do be quiet." Ellen's voice was firm enough to silence the colonel cacophony in an instant. She took out the doll and placed a crumb beside it before she addressed it. "I'm going to need some clarity." The doll, though it did not move, seemed to radiate a quiet suggestion. Elin stared at the doll in her mind. She heard the phrase, "Listen and do not judge." Elin nodded slowly. "All right," she said to the colonels. "Those who are stable on one side, those who are less so the other." There was a brief, heated discussion among the corn, but gradually two groups formed. Badat Yoga watched, his expression unreadable. "Interesting," he murmured. With the snap of his fingers, the container vanished. He smiled at Elin. "Time for your second task." He paused briefly but expectantly. "I want you to clean my home." The Yurt objected immediately. "I would like to file a complaint," it said in a voice that came from everywhere and nowhere. "This constitutes an unauthorized interference with my established state." "Elin," said Badat Yoga, "you will just have to ignore it." "No, you cannot ignore me," interrupted the Yurt. "I have feelings too." Elin took a breath. "Perhaps," she said, "we can agree on what clean means." There was a pause as the circular home considered its options. "Define parameters," it said. Elin glanced at the doll. Compromise, it seemed to suggest. "Clean enough to function as a living space," Elin said, "and you retain a veto." The home hummed thoughtfully. "Acceptable." The process that followed was less cleaning and more negotiation. Surfaces were polished only where they consented. Objects were rearranged according to a logic that was part aesthetic and part diplomatic treaty. Badat Yoga watched again, more intently this time. "And now you must cook," he said. From out of nowhere ingredients appeared. Some of them flickered, others smelled of old socks. One was labelled "definitely not sentient," probably. Elin raised an eyebrow. "Would you like to clarify?" "I am hungry. Use these ingredients to make something tasty, or I shall eat you." She fed the doll another crumb. "Right," she said. "We are improvising." What followed was an exercise in cautious experimentation. She tasted, adjusted, and occasionally apologized to the ingredients. At one point, the probably not sentient item sighed contentedly as it was added to the pot. "That's reassuring," said Elin, when she was done. Then she served the dish. Badat Yoga tasted it. He paused. "Edible," he said. He took another mouthful. "It is surprisingly good." He finished his plate before slumping back into his chair. He eyed Elin carefully. "You have done well." It sounded as though it cost him something. "We had a bargain." He waved his hand and a staff appeared, topped with a skull that glowed with a steady white light. "Take it." Elin accepted the staff. "What does it do? Other than give off light?" Badat Yoga smiled. "It is a truth-sayer. When lies are spoken, it forces honesty." She hesitated. He tilted his head. "It will also burn things if you so command it." Elin considered this. "Are there limitations?" "Oh, probably. I remember it came with a set of instructions, but I never bothered to read them." She turned to leave. "Elin," said Badat Yoga, "use it wisely and never out of hate." The house was as she had left it, composed, faintly smug, and smelling of furniture polish with top notes of jasmine. Mistress Vala stood by the door. "You have returned." She said it as though it was an administrative error. Elin stepped inside. "Yes, and I brought you the light as you requested." Kessa and Bryn gathered, curiosity overcoming caution. "What is it?" said Bryn. "A gift from Badat Yoga." Elin smiled as she raised the staff off the ground. The skull pulsed. Mistress Vala opened her mouth. "We were concerned," she said, "for your safety." The skull flared. "Actually, I sent you to be eaten." There was a silence. Kessa blinked. Bryn tried to look away. Elin said nothing as the skull glowed brighter. Kessa shifted. "Well, I always thought she worked too slowly, so I sabotaged her chores. It made me feel better." Bryn gasped. "And I told Mother it was Elin who broke her favourite vase, but it was me. I was scared, and I knew that she would never believe Elin." Mistress Vala stiffened. "This is absurd. I am in full control of my—" She tried to close her mouth. "I've never loved any of you," she continued helplessly. "There, I've said it now. You were inconvenient little gutter snipes, and what you did to my body, I will never forgive you." She threw herself into the nearest chair, sobbing. The words hung in the air, oppressive and undeniable. Even the house tried to hide its shame. No one spoke for a considerable time. The truth, it turned out, was less explosive than fire, but considerably more persistent. Elin made some tea. Mistress Vala found it difficult to maintain her composure, aware that every statement threatened to unravel into a dialogue of truth and emotional honesty. Kessa and Bryn discovered that self-awareness was a deeply uncomfortable garment. Elin rested the staff against the mantel. It glowed softly. "Perhaps," she said, handing out biscuits, "we might try being honest on purpose. We don't have to like each other, but we do need to be able to live in the same house." There was a long pause. The house itself relaxed. "That seems," said Mistress Vala, "exhausting." "It may be," said Elin. She took the doll out of her pocket and placed it on the mantel next to the truth-sayer. its work for now complete. Back in the haunted wood, Badat Yoga stood in his yurt, observing a flickering image in his scrying bowl. "Interesting," he murmured. The yurt shifted. "Will she return?" it asked. "Oh, yes, from time to time," he said. He paused momentarily. "Others will come." The yurt hummed. "And will you test them?" "I think more teaching than testing." Then he smiled. "Probably." The end. Right then, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe, all the usual things, and I will catch you next time. Till then, take care and stay safe.